I will say, if you want to play that game of who doesn't belong, and I throw out the names Calvin Ridley and Allen Robinson and Christian Kirk and Robert Woods and Zach Pascal, who doesn't belong? This is not a significant upgrade. Hopefully, the Eagles still have something up their sleeve at this particular position.
Birds 365 with John McMullen and Jody McDonald. I will apologize in advance for my overexcitement doing Birds 365 here today because the Eagles solved all their wide receiver problems yesterday. If we're to believe Nick Sirianni, I'm sorry, I'm going to believe the numbers a little bit and say the Zach Pascal signing is not going to move the needle all that much for the Philadelphia Eagles this year, but we shall see. John McMullen, how enthusiastic are you with Zach Pascal being added to the Eagle wide receiver room?
Not very excited. You hope it's an upgrade, and you hope. I don't even know if it's an upgrade. I'm starting to think, wow, this is where I am, Jody. I'm starting to think, well, Nelson Aguilar took off in his third year. I'm starting to get back in we got to count on Jalen Reagor a little bit to, because of the athleticism. So, I was texting you. So I'm going to be honest here. I haven't watched a ton of Zach Pascal film. All I know is what Nick Sirianni basically says about the kid. And he raves about him, to be fair.
Right.
So, I went to Pro Football Focus and I looked at the rankings. Oof was all I can say. Oof. They graded 115 wide receivers last year, played enough to be rated. 113 out of 115. 113 out of 115. Jody, Jalen Reagor was 105. 105. Miserable. Then I got all the Eagles apologists getting that's 1 year. Carson Wentz was throwing a football because they hate Carson Wentz. So I said, all right, let me look back at 2020. Reagor 94, I believe. I'll have to double check. 90 out of 127. Pascal 97. He was better than it was a rookie, at least from that standpoint. If you want to look at the film, they're not perfect. We go all that. But the point I'm trying to make is the larger point. I always say when they say a good player's good, Aaron Donald's always at the top. And when they say a bad player's bad, they don't miss.
Right.
So I will say, if you want to play that game of who doesn't belong, and I throw out the names Calvin Ridley and Allen Robinson and Christian Kirk and Robert Woods and Zach Pascal, who doesn't belong? This is not a significant upgrade. Hopefully, the Eagles still have something up their sleeve at this particular position. And now I think you got to start up with the draft again.
Yes.
I think you got to start up with the draft again. I don't think there's any question, but there's this there's this interesting disconnect. I want to get your thoughts on, Jody. So typically, like what the Eagles and what Nick Sirianni rave about, and I got a text from an ex-wide receivers coach yesterday, and they're talking about the little things, the fundamentals, and plus the work ethic. And I have no doubt that Zach Pascal's all those things. And, it got into this sort of off topic of how bad the Eagles receivers were, how bad the Eagles young receivers are. And I put Devontae Smith off to the side a little bit with little things, sight adjustments, realizing the coverages, realizing where they have to be, not running the proper routes to the, attention to detail, which Nick has talked about on the record. So I completely believe that. But then I'm starting to think, then I go back to the grades and the ratings, and I'm thinking, well, if you're fundamentally sound, shouldn't that show up? And I'm thinking it does show up, But then what is the problem? Well, if it does show up, the problem is talent.
Yep.
The kid doesn't have a ton of talent. And this is an offense that needs an explosive player, and they still don't have it, obviously. So, long story short, no, I'm not excited about this signing even a little bit.
And nor am I. I know you like the NBA, so you'll understand the point I'm trying to make. The Sixers beat the Miami Heat last night without Joel Embiid and without James Harden. All the guys on the bench came up big. Maxey took it to another level. Jake Milton came out of hiding. What's his name? Furkan Korkmaz came out of the witness protection program and made some big shots, and they beat Miami. If I'm not mistaken, the Miami Heat still have Udonis Haslem as one of their players. He never dresses anymore. He's just one of the guys on the roster. But he's about 7 years removed from being able to make any kind of contribution on the court. But he's a great team guy. But he works real hard in practice because he pushes his teammates. And well, that's nice. If you can find that, that's good. And the NBA has expanded their rosters to 15, and most teams only play 8, maybe 9. So that 15th guy, you can do something like that, a creative roster spot where you got a guy just to keep around to make the other guys work harder and take their craft seriously and the like. Can the Eagles really afford that at the wide receiver position?
No.
When you've got Devonta Smith and then a bunch of guys named Pete. No, you need every position that every body that you have at the wide receiver position to be able to give you something. The Eagle passing game wasn't good enough last year because they had J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Jalen Reagor. And guess what? They still have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Jalen Reagor here. I thought we were looking to upgrade, to not reproduce. If Zach Pascal is just a slightly better J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, what have the Eagles really done? This was supposed to be the offseason. They went out and added a guy. They did it with Devonta Smith last year, rookie and all the trappings that come with it, but I think he stamped himself as a future star in this league. But this was supposed to be the year they added to that mix Zach Pascal, pet favorite of the head coach. I'm sorry, does not get me stirred one little iota.
No. And to be fair, I mean, I'm going to be fair to the Eagles as well. It's a 1-year deal. I mean, they haven't, and I assume it's for the veteran minimum. We'll see when it gets filed, but I can't imagine they're giving him anything more than that. Maybe some incentives, that type of thing tied in if he gets to play a lot. So, they're not stamping this as any kind of answer. And, it is plan. It's obviously plan, whatever you want to call it, C, D, E, F, maybe is the best letter for it. They did try to get Ridley. They did try to sign Kirk. They did try to sign Robinson. It looks like it's real. They tried to get Robert Woods as well. So they've been behind the scenes. I've compared it to the duck sitting on top of the lake. It looks all serene, but underneath, the duck is paddling furiously to stay atop. That's what they've been doing at the wide receiver position. Haven't been able to get anything done. It's a results-oriented business. Then when you end up with Zach Pascal, which we talked about yesterday, it's results-oriented, and you end up with Zach Pascal that, spin it however you want. And by the way, the Eagles aren't spinning this as some massive signing.
No, they're not. Every
coach has their guys. Every single one of them in every single sport has their guys. This is one of Nick Sirianni's guys. This is a guy he's comfortable with. This is a guy he wants around. Already I talk about, Jack Driscoll, for whatever reason, has become one of Nick Sirianni's guys. Loves the guy. Loves him. And I think he's better than Zach Pascal. I don't want to insult Jack Driscoll because I think he can play a little bit. But every coach, in my point, has, you just mentioned Udonis Haslem. People want people around because of some of those intangibles they do have. And if this guy, he's played quite a bit in Indianapolis. I think 900 snaps last year, somewhere in that range. If he's at 900 snaps this year, that's not a good thing for the Eagles. That's how I'll frame it.
And I like your analogy of the ducks paddling the hell under the water, but you don't necessarily see it on the top. And yeah, the paddling underwater is a good thing if the duck is moving. Now, he can be moving tremendously, and you can see it above the water as well. You can paddle as hard as you want under the water. If the duck's not moving an inch, it doesn't matter how quick those feet are going underneath the water. And just being in the mix for Robert Woods is nice. If you don't get him, you know what it counts for? 0. Close to trading for Calvin Ridley. Almost had to deal he's suspended for the entire year. You know how much that improves the Eagles? Absolutely 0. Devontae Adams got traded this offseason. Don't know if the Eagles had a conversation. They probably inquired. Are they really going to trade him? Green Bay, where are you going to trade him? He ends up as an Oakland Raider. Was it due for the Eagles? 0. Just doing your due diligence and being inquisitive and putting in phone calls and being on top of things.
Mean, you're right. I mean, that's what we said. And the Eagles know that. They don't want it to be framed. In fact, they don't like to be framed as losing out on all these players. They don't like it. They don't want to be known as the team that loses out on players. But I do think it's real right now in this snapshot in time, and I know people get upset, and that's why the trade market to me always made more sense. And with Ridley, obviously nobody knew that was coming. Nobody in the NFL knew it was coming, except the Falcons at the very end. In the case of Woods, who knows? Because he's going to run first team with a not exactly a great, other than they were a number 1 seed. And, so who knows why he directed things the way he wanted to direct the things. But they have an issue right now at the receiver position when it comes to recruitment because of the way they play. And I know people say it's about Jalen. It's not about Jalen Hurts. It's about the way they play. It's about the offense they ran last year. We had Brad on yesterday, Brad Spielberger. Essentially, Jody, except for Deshaun Watson, all these contracts are 2-year deals where you can get out of it after, by the 3rd year. Occasionally with a really high-profile player, Kirk Cousins, before you get that 3rd year. But I would say well over 95% of these contracts have an out after the 2nd year. And agents are savvy enough to know if you want to be in a position to either get the rest of your deal or more likely restructure and keep pushing things off, but still getting money year to year on a year-to-year basis, you got to produce, especially if you're a high-profile free agent like Christian Kirk, Allen Robinson. You got to produce. And if you don't produce, you're done. You're done after that 2nd year, maybe even after the 1st year. Occasionally happens, not generally with that high profile, but you're done. So they're well aware that they have to be in certain situations to maximize their earning potential. I'll put it as, and that obviously helps agents as well because they make money based on what their clients get paid. So right now they have a problem at that particular position. Not every position, not an organizational problem, but right now they have a recruitment problem at that particular position, and you got to change it. And how do you change it? The only way you can change it is to get on the field and prove otherwise.
I hear the point you're trying to make, but are the Eagles defined in the minds of all NFL people, most importantly, free agent wide receivers that they could have gone out and quote unquote tried to recruit, because they became a run-heavy offense for the last 60% of the season? The first 40% of the season, they were throwing the ball like most other teams in the National Football League. They came to the in-season realization we got a really good drive blocking line, and maybe we should just try and run the ball down other teams' throats. But it wasn't like Nick Sirianni was hired and came in and kind of fumbled through his first press
You're
conference
right,
and
Jody,
said, we're going to run the ball down other
Yeah.
teams' throats. I'm coming in here to redo the National Football League. We've got the best offensive line. We're going to power drive our way into the play. That wasn't the case.
No.
It just kind of
It wasn't.
developed organically
right.
because they needed it to.
And I think behind the scenes, everybody in the NFL knows Nick wants to throw the football. But I think the point is, you make a valid point, but the point is they shipped it out of necessity because they weren't successful throwing the football as much as they did.
And why weren't they successful?
Well, chicken and the egg. There's a lot of things. I mean,
all right. Well, I'm going to ask you to put them in an order for me. Was Jalen Hurts more incapable than the wide receivers were under-talented, or was the under-talented wide receiver core what kept Jalen Hurts from putting up better numbers?
And I think you can also throw in the scheme, a young coaching staff learning on the job. I think that was part of it as well. But, it depends. Like, is Jalen Hurts? Jalen Hurts is behind Devontae Smith, for instance. Devontae Smith is ready to go. Devontae Smith is ready to put up numbers. If he had Justin Herbert, for instance, as a young quarterback, Joe Burrow, he'd be putting up just, if he stayed healthy, obviously, outrageous numbers. He's ready.
Last year.
He's ready to go. Now, he had 916 yards, which sounds like a lot. It's an Eagles franchise record, but that's not a lot in the modern NFL, especially for a receiver with that talent level. I mean, he could be up.
Not when Jamar Chase does what he does.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Makes the 900 yards kind of pale in comparison.
He could be up at 13, 14, that range, and probably has the talent to do so. All the other receivers, yeah, Brett Jalen's, probably getting hurt by them. Not probably, definitely. Now the Eagles seem to think more of Quez Watkins than I do. But I think part of that is because they want to pump up what they do have at the present time. Not that he's a bad player. It's just, I think he'd be fine as a number 3, and I think he'd be good as a number 4. I don't think he's a number 2 right now. And there's still room for development. He's one of those guys that's going to clean up the fundamental stuff, the technique stuff, the route running stuff, and maybe Zach Pascal can help with that kind of stuff, and maybe he's the type of player that he'll be around to help. So there's still room for improvement. But from the larger perspective, it is what it is at this point. And until you change it, and by the way, Nick wants to change it. I say all the time, Nick wants to run 11 personnel. Nick wants to have an explosive offense. Nick wants to be able to throw the football all over the field. But he does what he needs to do in order to win on a Sunday or a Saturday or a Thursday or a Monday, if you want to, they play so many days of the week. And right now, people around the league see that. And, by the way, and Andrew Brandt will tell you this about his time in Green Bay. Look, nobody wants to play in Green Bay. Nobody wants to spend their time in Green Bay. Sometimes you have to pay a premium. So if you're going to get somebody like that, you have to overpay them to come to your organization. Different reasons, obviously, weather-wise, and people don't want to hang around. And nowadays, it's not as big as a deal because people are so rich. They just, leave Green Bay the minute the season's over, and they want to play there because it's a good team, good organization. But he'll talk about all the time how hard it was to get people to stick around the offseason. He was the one who created workout bonuses so people would just stick around to work out with the team. Everybody, Jacksonville. Why did Christian Kirk get that money? Because Jacksonville has this terrible reputation as an organization. So if you want to get the player, you got to overpay the player. And the Eagles are too disciplined. They're not going to do that.
All right. So, is the Eagle organization considered a substandard organization that players wouldn't want to come play for?
Exact opposite. Well,
then again, inform me, educate me. Why is it a bad place to play? Why would they
It's
have
not
to
a bad
overpay?
place to play. That's what I said. There's different reasons. I use Green Bay as an example. That's the issue.
I'm not
Green Bay
asking you
has.
about Green Bay. I'm asking you about the Eagles.
No, but I'm trying to compare. That's the issue Green Bay has. Jacksonville's a bad organization. They have to overpay. The Eagles have to overpay at wide receiver right now in this snapshot because of the way they play football right now. Not that they're a bad organization.
For the last 10 games of last year.
Well, for the last year and what people think they're going to be because of how the team is structured. I mean, again,
so Jalen Hurts is scaring off wide receivers, is what you're telling me.
I'm saying the whole cocktail. Jalen Hurts, the way the Eagles run the offense, the way they play football, people look at it and they don't see the attempt. Again, I use Devontae Smith as an example. Devontae Smith, everybody knows, is an explosive player in this league. 916 yards. Again, to Eagles fans, that's great. They haven't seen that in years. To the average NFL offense, that's not great. And it's certainly not great for a player of that caliber. And he was healthy for the most part. He had the shoulder issue, but he was out there playing. It wasn't like he missed a bunch of games. So that was the ceiling. And you just brought up Jamar Chase. You just, look at the ceiling of Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow. Look at the ceiling of the Chargers receivers with Justin Herbert, and on and on and on. And obviously the great quarterbacks. You can look at them all, Devontae Adams, blah, blah, blah. What did Aaron Rodgers get Devontae Adams paid? Explosive offenses. And again, if you're an agent, so I'll look at this, Jody, I'll ask you this. Put on your agent's cap. You're getting your 2-3%, whatever it is these days. You're getting your 2-3% by how much money they make, not about the phony contracts that are reported on in the media when guys are spinning things. So when that third year comes around, you're going to try to put the guy in the best position to succeed so you can get your money or not. Wouldn't you do business that way? I'll ask you.
Sure, absolutely. But again, are you just telling me agents are making the decision on the fact that the Eagles ran the ball for the last 10 games rather than the first 6?
I'm saying they're informing their clients that this is probably a better spot for you.
Right,
Allen Robinson.
Here's what my question would be for Nick Sirianni then. Can he not sell that they're going to be a better passing team next year? If you're telling me that agents and players are making their decision based on basically less than a full season's action, that the Eagles became a run-heavy team last year and that affected the wide receivers' numbers. Can Nick Sirianni not go into an agent's into a meeting with an agent and go, listen, if we got your guy, I will throw the ball more. Your guy is that good. Your guy, I'm going to make my quarterback get him the football. We're not going to be as run heavy going forward. And between you and I had a wide receiver room that wasn't quite good enough. And that's why we need a guy like you to. He can't sway that agent by
making an sway all right
of what it's going to be.
That's a very good argument, Jody. So I'll turn it around on you. Pretend I'm the agent. I gave you that argument for my client. Now, I got a meeting with the Los Angeles Rams that I got to get to. They got Matthew Stafford. They got this high-octane offense. They got Sean McVay.
They also have Cooper Kupp and the former wide receiver from Chicago. They just signed. You want to go in there be their number 3 rather than come here and be my 1A to Devontae Smith? Really? You think your numbers are going to be better out there in LA than here? I'm telling you, I'm going to throw the football more here than we did last year. And yeah, you're going to get more targets playing for the Philadelphia Eagles than you are the Los Angeles Rams next year, bud.
Well, Allen Robinson, that's why I brought up the Rams, was in that exact situation. Allen Robinson chose the Los Angeles Rams. Now, they're also a better team. You can throw that into the mix. Obviously, they're the reigning Super Bowl champions. They do have Cooper Kupp, but Robert Woods, when he was healthy, had no trouble getting targets. Tyler Higbee had no problem getting targets as a tight end. When Odell came in and got his feet under him, he had no problem getting targets. They were even, when everybody was hurt at the end, they were even targeting a 7th-round draft choice, Ben Skoranek, not very successfully. But he was getting some targets.
In the Super Bowl, he's getting targets.
He was getting some targets.
Yep.
I don't know. If I'm the agent, you can make your decision. I heard your argument. I've heard Sean McVay's argument. Remember, I want to touch the hem of his garment. I'm sorry, Nick. By the way, I believe you want to throw the football more. But this is a better opportunity for my particular client at this particular time.
But by the way, and I know you don't know the answer to this. It's a quasi unfair question, but do we know the Eagles made an offer to Allen Robinson anywhere near the offer that the Los Angeles Rams did?
I know they made an offer. I don't know what the number was, but that was my last part. To get a player like that in a situation like that, that's where you have to do what Jacksonville did. That's what you had to do with Andrew Brandt back in the day. That's where, if you want to be in the conversation, you got to overpay the guy. That's how you get him back in and all right.
Do you think Robinson got a below market deal because they were the Rams, a fair market deal, or did they also have to overpay?
I think I think everybody's overpaid, but that's me. He's probably fair market. Maybe he took a little bit less, but I don't know that for a fact.
Right.
But I know the
Eagles might not have even had to overpay. They might just have had to pay fair market value if somebody else was going to come in at under.
I know the Eagles are very disciplined to a fault. So, they're not going to overpay to a ludicrous degree that you have to do to get somebody's attention. They're never going to do that. And that to me is hurting them right now at the wide receiver position. But that's it. At the wide receiver position, that's it. Nowhere else. At the wide receiver position.
Here's why I will disagree with the Eagles' overall philosophy as it stands right now, as you just described it. Every season is different. And you have to, when you get certain pieces in place on your roster and in your salary cap, there's two worlds you have to judge: the overall talent of your roster and the salary cap position you're in. Right now, the Eagles have one key advantage over a bunch of other teams they're competing with for playoff spots in the NFC. They've got a guy on the 3rd year of a 4-year rookie deal as a 2nd-round draft pick, which means compared to the other quarterbacks in their conference, their QB is making diddly squat, which means you should have flexibility on your overall salary cap to pick a position and go, all right, we're going to go away from our usual norm. We're going to try and have to put aside our default thinking that we're not going to overpay. We don't want to overpay. We always want to be balanced. We want to give a guy what he's worth, but we don't want to blow him out of the water just because we have to, because there's a preconceived notion of what type of team we are around the National Football League. So therefore we have to overpay. If that's what it takes, you got to overpay. If you have the ability to overpay at one position because you're severely underpaying at another position, well, then it kind of balances out in the wash. And the Eagles don't seem to want to pay for the wide receiver position, and I think they kind of need to.
Well, I even said sometimes they're disciplined, which I think is a good thing, really the vast majority of the time. Sometimes they're disciplined to a fault. Sometimes you got to understand where you are. I always say one of the toughest things is to self-evaluate and be honest with yourself. And with the Eagles in professional sports, they got to understand where they are at the wide receiver position. But I also say this, Jody, man, I know a lot of fans like to think players look around and they say, well, and we just went through this with Deshaun Watson. Well, Cleveland has the best roster. Nobody's looking around at who has the best roster. Nobody. I go back to Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers, right? He likes to tell you how smart he is. He is a smart guy. I'm not going to, for all the people that want to criticize him for other issues, he is a very smart guy. But he's not shy about it. He likes to tell you about it. Very cocky, understandably so. Think about what Aaron Rodgers got upset. The original part of why he got upset with the Green Bay Packers. Because they cut Jake Kummerow. Who? Jake Kummerow. He was upset by it. And think about Aaron Rodgers when he started talking about he wants to be involved with the decision making on the offensive side, and he wants Randall Cobb back. Really? 157-year-old Randall Cobb, who was a good player when he was young.
By the way, can we get Randall Cobb?
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I'll take Randall Cobb.
Yeah, he's a good player here, but not a good player there for that setup. Can you get your money? Can you get that third year? Can you get that fourth year? And then, as I said, you have agents steering you in a particular directions. They're the ones giving you the information, and they only get paid if you get that third year, the fourth. If you don't get that third year money, they don't get their third year money. They don't get their fourth year money. So they try to steer things in a certain direction. And until the Eagles prove that they can throw the ball consistently, if they want to be disciplined, they're going to miss out on these top-tier receivers on the free agent market. Now, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I think it's good they missed out on Christian Kirk, to be honest. I think it's good. I don't think that would have worked out. Allen Robinson, I don't think it's as good.
All right, so let me ask you about one guy in particular, John, because I hear the explanation you're making, and it makes a ton of sense. But there are some exceptions to the rule, and I'm going to call the Eagles on the exception to the rule. A guy whose name you threw out here a lot. You were not alone. I'm not trying to just pin this on you. Whole bunch of Eagle reporters threw this name out as a guy who made sense, who fit for the Philadelphia, who would be the upgrade that they need. But it's not Allen Robinson, which they're going to have to overpay for. We know the Eagles don't overpay. DJ Chark. Why is DJ Chark not a Philadelphia Eagle? He signed with the Detroit Lions. And if the Eagles are an organization that wide receivers are staying away from like they've got the plague, why would anyone sign with the Detroit Lions to go catch balls from Jared Goff and that team, who is, again, if they're not looking at what the team achieved the year before, Eagles were in the playoffs, Lions are drafting number 2 in this upcoming draft. Why is DJ Chark a Detroit Lion and not a Philadelphia Eagle?
Well, and I don't put him in the category because I don't think the Eagles made him an offer. So everything,
do I have to restate my question? Why didn't the Eagles make DJ Chark an offer?
But because my assessment is they didn't like the player. I always say everything's about evaluation. And if you're not in the mix, he got 1 year, $10 million from the Lions. I had heard, I think New England made him an offer. And there was another team. And he chose the Lions. A lot of us, and I was one of them, and I can't speak for everybody, but we before free agency starts, we look at who's going to be available, and we say, all right, well, the Eagles typically want the guy coming off the rookie deal, so DJ's like 25 or 26 or whatever. He's coming off the rookie deal. He had some injuries, so he still got some upside. He had a big year. He had one big year with a bad organization and a bad situation. So you say, well, that guy would make some sense for the Eagles. I don't know if anybody, I didn't see if anybody did reported the Eagles had interest in the kid, actual interest, as was reported, with Ridley and Robinson and Kirk and now Woods. So, the better question is, why didn't they like the player? I can't answer, but that would be my answer. They just didn't like the player. Now I'd rather have DJ Chark than every Eagles receiver but Devontae Smith.
Not named Devontae Smith.
Yeah. But I can't tell you as to why they don't like the player, but they certainly didn't go after him. And by the way, even if they decided, all right, DJ Chark is a guy who can fit and is a guy who can help us, I don't think they'd be paying him with the discipline, with his record of coming off. I think it was a fractured ankle last year, missed most of last year. Coming off the injury, I don't think they would have paid him $10 million anyway. So if it got to the money, which it never did, I think they would have been too disciplined for him as well. Right. So over discipline, maybe.
Well, you're not doing anything for my confidence that the Eagles are going to be able to upgrade at wide receiver during this offseason, unless they use one of the 3 first-round draft picks they have. And we've sat here and speculated basically since the season ended that they probably will not use all 3, that they'll trade down with 1 and get out of the first round and only make 2 picks, but add extra draft capital, or trade out and send a first-round pick this year for a future first-round pick and maybe another pick this year. We go through the scenarios where the Eagles go from 3 draft picks to 2 draft picks, and when you're down to 2, are they really going to use 1 on a wide receiver for the 3rd consecutive year? You talk about judging the Eagles and the trends with which they built this team since Howie Roseman took over. He doesn't. I don't think he liked. I think they just had too big a report on Devontae Smith that they couldn't turn away from it. That they thought he was one of the best players in the draft and they could get into a position to take him. I don't think they really wanted to go back to wide receiver again last year, but they had to, in part because Jalen Reagor kind of showed what he was and JR Whiteside kind of was what he was. So I'll give them credit for at least acknowledging, we still need wide receiver help. Howie, if you're watching, you still need wide receiver help. Sorry to say, big guy. As tough as you may be in taking stands and disciplined, John's favorite word, which is dead on accurate, as disciplined as you may want to be and you may want to stay, you still need help at the wide receiver position. McMullen and McDonald, your Mac Birds 365 guys coming back. Couple of other moves around the National Football League. Yeah, the quarterback carousel continues to spin, and although some people are quite happy that the Eagles are staying with Jalen Hurts, there are others that are ready to move on. Maybe some ready to move on after the way Johnny Mac told us that the reason they can't get a wide receiver is because they've got the offense they've got right now, which is led by Jalen Hurts. He's still their QB. We'll talk about the other quarterback moves in the league when we come back here on Birds 365.